If man no longer finds any meaning in his life, it makes no difference whether he wastes away under a communist or a capitalist regime. Only if he can use his freedom to create something meaningful is it relevant to be free. That is why finding the inner meaning of life is more important for the individual than anything else, and why the process of individuation must be given priority. Explaining the individuation process might be an impossible task because we are talking about a spiritual process which must be abstracted with the physical examples we have at hand. Therefore, I will just give a small draft and oversight of its workings and manifestations into this presentation. It's normally a natural process that's unique for everyone and which spans over a lifetime, but it shows certain themes, called archetypes, that are identical for all individuals. It's a restoring of an initial state, like the Christian transformation of accept ye become as little children, or the Satori experience of the Buddhist tradition, show me your original face. The process of individuation is a development in which the original propensity to wholeness becomes a conscious happening. It's the conscience and free choice of the individual to follow the hero's journey which sets him on an adventure in the world from which to draw lessons that defines a person's character. In this process, the individual integrates the archetypes from the collective unconscious into his own psychological makeup to let the psychic energy that accompanies these cognitive structures flow freely through the individual. It's the psychological transformation of a human into the being he is supposed to be. There are many different features that define the individuation process, but the most obvious ones are the integration of the archetypes from the collective unconscious, the integration of the opposites, and the positive effects it has on yourself and others. Because of the environment and personal choice, the archetypes are experienced by everyone differently and yet are for all people the same. Those are the persona, the shadow, the anima or animus, the child, and the most important archetype, the self. The persona is the first obstacle on the way to realize our true self. It's a convenient lie, the person we show to our surroundings, a compromise between you and the world about how an individual should behave in a society. Whoever looks into the mirror of the water will first of all see his own face. Whoever goes to himself risks a confrontation with himself. The mirror does not flatter, it faithfully shows whatever looks into it, namely the face we never show to the world because we cover it with the persona, the mask of the actor. But the mirror lies behind the mask and shows the true face. The second archetype is the shadow, which represents evil. The meeting with oneself is at first a meeting with one's own shadow. The shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door, whose painful constriction no one is spared who goes down to the deep well. But one must learn to know oneself in order to know who one is, for what comes after the door is surprisingly enough a boundless expanse full of unprecedented uncertainty, with apparently no inside and no outside, no above and no below, no here and no there, no mine and no thine, no good and no bad. It is the world of water, where all life floats in suspension, where the realm of the sympathetic system, the soul of everything living, begins, where I am indivisibly this and that, where I experience the other in myself and the other than myself experiences me. The third archetype are the anima and the animus, the eternal female and male. I shall begin with a brief statement. In the unconscious of every man there is hidden a feminine personality and in that of every woman a masculine personality. It is a well-known fact that sex is determined by a majority of male or female genes, as the case may be, but the minority of genes belonging to the other sex does not simply disappear. A man therefore has in him a feminine side, an unconscious feminine figure, a fact of which he is generally quite unaware. The meeting with the anima animus represents a connection to the unconscious even deeper than that of the shadow. In the case of the shadow, it is the meeting with the disdained and rejected pieces of the total psyche, the inferior and unwanted qualities. In a meeting with the anima animus, it is a contact with levels of the psyche which has the potential to lead into the deepest and highest reaches that the ego can attain. The archetype of the child runs through the whole individuation process from beginning to end, since child means evolving towards independence and is the vessel in which the conflict of opposites can find peace. The child motive represents not only something that existed in the distant past, but also something that exists now. That is to say, it is not just a vestige, but a system functioning in the present whose purpose is to compensate or correct. in a meaningful manner the inevitable one-sidedness and extravagance of the conscious mind. The last and most important archetype in which all the other archetypes find a correct expression is the self. This transformation into the self is the synthesis of the conscious with the unconscious, which leads to the original psychological state of non-recognition, a state of unconscious identity of man and the universe where one does no longer differentiate between subject and object. The ego stands to the self as the move to the mover or as object to subject, because the determining factors which radiate out from the self surround the ego on all sides and are therefore subordinates to it. The self, like the unconscious, is an a priori existence out of which the ego evolves. It is, so to speak, an unconscious prefiguration of the ego. It is not I who create myself, rather I happen to myself. So these are the important lines in the individuation process. By integrating the archetypes into your psyche, the war of opposites will find peace, which leads to an inner balance that enhances not just your own well-being, but also of the people around you. Of course, there's infinitely more to say about this topic, which hopefully I address in other videos about the individuation processes seen in movies.